Serve. Good to see you. Now today I'm going to show you about making elderflower champagne, or elderflower fizz perhaps is more accurate because champagne is a protected name, and the Comité de Champagne will come down on me if I keep calling it champagne. And it includes hibiscus flowers, a sort of tropical flower, very red, and rhubarb. So it's got a few extra flavours in there. You can change it up if you want. You can leave off the rhubarb if you don't like rhubarb. If you haven't got hibiscus flowers, leave it out. If you want to add mint instead of hibiscus, add that. If you want to add melon instead of rhubarb, put that in. Whatever really floats your boat. So the first thing we're going to do with our elderflower, rhubarb and hibiscus fizz is to dissolve 666 grams of sugar into 1.6 litres of boiling water. 666 grams, number of the beast, weird. It just happens that I've scaled this down from a recipe that made a lot more, and that's what it came out of. This is a beastly fizz. So into a big vat goes the sugar, and then we put in 1.6 litres of hot water. And then all we need to do is give this a stir around to get that sugar dissolved. Once that sugar is dissolved, I'm going to put in 2.4 litres of cold water into a sterilised pot, by the way. Right, so that's all the liquid and the sugar combined in the big pot. And we're just going to wait for that to come down in temperature. You don't want it to be above 30 degrees because we are going to be relying on yeast to ferment this drink. That gives us an opportunity to bring in all our other ingredients and get them ready to go. Now this is quite a kitchen sink, in inverted commas, way of making this. You can do it far more sophisticated using winemaking equipment and all that sort of stuff. This is a little bit more rough and ready, a bit more sort of hit it and see where it ends up. But I've had good results from this, and I'm sure you will as well. So first of all, the elderflowers. Now I've got a video on collecting elderflowers if you need any help or information about that. Otherwise, this is what they look like. I'm sure you've all seen them. And I've forked off, stop giggling at the back, I forked off a lot of the petals from 8 flower heads. About 8 of these elderflower heads. And I'll show you how I do that. So you just take a fork and you run it down the green stems, and you take off just as much of the white petal as possible and as little as the stalk as possible, because you don't want that in your drink, but you do want the petals. I've juiced and zested 2 lemons and 1 orange. Well, actually 1 lemon and 1 orange, because I'm going to do one now. So I use this sort of zester. It's got these little holes on it and sort of sharp edges, and it just goes down, bring that a bit closer, goes down the lemon, and they peel off. And you can see that, but they're just shards come off, and that's it, zesting away. Once I've gone that way down, I turn it round and I go across the score marks to get all the zest off. Okay, that's the zest, and then I just need to juice it. So cut it in half, get my trusty juicing tool, and this was the juice previously, and then just see if I can show you that. Run that in there, and out comes all the juice from the lemon or the orange. Don't worry too much about the pips. Try and keep them out, but if they go in, it doesn't matter. We're going to strain this at the end of the day anyway, before we bottle it. So we'll be using that in a bit. The other thing that I'm going to use, rhubarb. So there's our rhubarb. That's 160 grams of rhubarb. I've just chopped it up. I'll show you how. So if it's a relatively big stalk like that, just run your knife down the middle, and then just chop it up into about half-inch kind of chunks. Don't have to be accurate. It's all just going to meld and give flavour to your elderflower champagne fizz. So goes in, put this into the tub there. Cool. When you're making this, there's natural yeast within the elderflower heads themselves. So you could just rely on that to ferment it and see where you get on. It might take a little longer to get going because there's not as much yeast. If you want to speed things up, which I'm going to do here, you can add, it's wine yeast. You can get it from any homebrew shop or get it online, or if you've got a local homebrew shop, support them obviously. And this is just premium wine yeast. It's used for making any grape wine or vegetable wine or anything like that. What I've done, I'm not going to use all of that packet, but I've done about half of it, and I've hydrated it into a little jug. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a bit difficult to see, but on the top there's a little foamy surface, which means that it's active. It says you don't need to do that. I generally do, just to check that it's actually working and it hasn't gone to sleep or it's, you know, died or whatever. And then the rest of that half I'll just keep in the fridge. I can use that for something else. Okay, the last ingredient that we need is the hibiscus flowers. So I'm using about 10 grams of hibiscus flowers. So we've got these flowers, and they are the petals of the hibiscus plant, which is, as I said, a sort of tropical flower, and it's got a very fruity flavour. It's very sharp, slightly sour really. And they make tea out of this in all sorts of different countries, and I love it. I think it's great. But it also lends a brilliant pink hue to the end of this, or to the finished product. So it ends up being like pink champagne or pink fizz. So that's our final ingredient to go in. Okay, so we've got our sugary water down to under 30 degrees, so that's good. We've got our elderflower and lemon and orange zest here, and what we do is we add this into the water. Simple as that. And there we go. Okay, put that down there. Then the rhubarb, in it goes. Put that down there. Hibiscus flowers, these are dehydrated, they'll hydrate in the liquid. In they go. The juice of the lemon and the orange, in it goes. Okay. It's a good thing to do before you add the yeast, is to give this a big old stir up, get it all mixing together, getting to know each other. Hello. And yeah, get some air in there, because that's going to help with the yeast. It's going to sort of kick-start it and get it going quickly. So give it a stir, a little whisk around, try and just get a few air bubbles in there and get it going. And that should do it. There we go. Perfect. And then the yeast goes in. Now I'll do it over here. You might need a teaspoon just to get it all out. So I've got a teaspoon here. But just tip it in as quick as you can. Actually, most of it came out. That was pretty good. Great. So again, we need to just stir this around to get that yeast moving around inside our liquid, and get it working to generate carbon dioxide and alcohol. Now this isn't going to be super alcoholic. It's going to end up probably somewhere around 2, 3, maybe 4%. Yeah, if you're going to give it to kids, be aware. You might want to dilute it with some sparkling water. But yeah, the byproduct of fermentation is going to be alcohol. So the next thing to do is just cover that with a clean tea towel. Put an elastic band around it to keep it in place and keep any bugs out. And after a few hours, you'll start to hear that starting to fizz up and bubble. And I'd leave that for at least 3-4 days and check on it again. And if it's still bubbling away, leave it for another few days. Once it starts to die down a bit, after possibly 4, 5, 6 days even, it's time to bottle that, and we'll be coming back to that shortly. Okay, so our elderflower fizz has been fermenting for about 6 days. The sound of the bubbles coming through it, the yeast working away and digesting the sugars, has died down. You could hear it before, it was like, you know, little fizzing bubbles, and it's died away, so we're ready to bottle it. So there's a few things we need to do first in the process before we get it in the bottle, and that is to just let it settle. We're going to sieve it and let it settle. And to do that, we're going to put it into this bowl through the old trusty Norfolk Broads tea towel. Rather persecuted and tortured tea towel that it is, but it seems to be holding up. Anyway, now, because this is all going to be bottled straight away, we need all our equipment to be pretty sterile, you know, it's not going to get boiled again, so this needs to be sterilised. So what we're going to do is pretty straightforward. Put the tea towel into the pan that we're going to use to decant it into. Take a kettle, boiling water, careful, and just pour it on. Doesn't have to be for too long. Right, I've tipped the water out and I've drained off the tea towel and I've let it all cool down a little bit because it's quite hot to handle. And then what I've done is I've clipped the tea towel around the rim of the bowl we're going to collect the elderflower fizz in, and it's now ready to be poured in. So this is our elderflower fizz. It's been fermenting for 6 days, and we'll see how we get on. So it's definitely taken on the smell. of elderflowers, and it's got a hue of pink from the hibiscus flowers as well. And now we just have to strain it through. And be careful when you're doing this, obviously, liquids. See a little bit of cloudiness at the end there, which is where the pollen and the yeast has come to. I wouldn't put it all in, I just hold a bit back. That has all sort of got room. And I'd say that's perfect. So what we need to do now is unclip the tea towel here and take this off. You just put it into the pan it came from to deal with in a second. So this is now the must. And what we're going to do is just leave that for about an hour for everything in there just to settle down to the bottom, and then we're going to put it into bottles. So clean tea towel over the top, leave that there. That's our hour up. So we're about to bottle our elderflower and rhubarb and hibiscus flower fizz into the bottles. Now, I know what you're looking at, you're thinking, what the heck is going on here? What I've done is I've elevated the tub with the fizz in it, because we're going to siphon it into a bottle, so we need a bit of height, because there needs to be a differential in height to get the siphon to work. So it's not on an altar, I'm not going to pray to this, it's just helping me out. I know it looks like a little Shop of Horrors experiment, this kind of blood red liquid with some tubes and all that, but trust me, the siphon, sterilised, goes down in there, and generally any brewing equipment like a siphon it's like a drunk snake. You can't control it and it'll just pop out and fall on the floor and it'll be a mess. So I've tried to secure it with masking tape along the edge, and the rest coils down into there, hopefully like a sedated snake. So let's give this a go. This might all turn really wrong, but let's have a go. Now, siphoning is a bit of an art. It does involve sucking on the siphon end. You don't get it in your mouth. You try and stop before it goes that far. And there is a valve on this to stop it at that point. So let's give this a go. Here we go. Ready? Okay. Kind of worked. I did get it in my mouth, but we now have... Oh, quickly, come on. There, we're off. We're off and running. We're siphoning. So I've now opened it up. You see the liquid is now flowing into the bottle. I'm trying not to dislodge this Heath Robinson contraption, which is holding it down. Now, what I would do is not fill the bottle right to the top. This stuff is fizzy. Okay, I'm just having to hold it in place because it keeps wanting to jump up, as I said, a drunk snake. One of the reasons that we're using plastic bottles over a swing top glass bottle, which looks nicer, but a plastic bottle such as this has a screw top lid, and that means that we can control the pressure within the bottle by just undoing it every now and again, a couple of days. If it feels like the bottle is getting really pressurised, just release a bit of this carbon dioxide, there'll be a big hissing noise, much like when you open a bottle of lemonade or sparkling water or whatever, and just keep the pressure at a comfortable level without it sort of getting too much of a strain on the bottle or any risk of the bottle popping, which would be awful. The other way to get the elderflower fizz in a bottle is to do a traditional funnel and tip it in. If you haven't got a siphon or a siphon tube, don't worry, you can do it, but what I would do is just tilt the bottle and do it as gently as possible and try and leave as much of the dust or the sediment behind that you can. Okay, bit of an epic there. Not all total success, but that's the way it goes in the kitchen when you're doing ferments and brewing stuff, but and you're short-handed. We'll store that somewhere sort of room temperature, dark, for 1 week, and that's going to be ready to drink. Right, the time has come to try our elderflower, rhubarb and hibiscus fizz. So it's been a week in the bottle, come for a walk in the woods, thought we'd have it in a woodland setting. There we go, there's a pop for you. And the little fizz coming up. Pour myself a glass. Cheers. Wow, that's lovely. Quite tart, a little bit sweet, sour, really delicious. So that's how to make the fizz. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked us, give us a thumbs up and follow us on Instagram. And I'll see you back here for more of the same soon.